Today on the grill we have a 2.5 pound Chimichurri Tomahawk Ribeye that your entire family is going to enjoy. Stick with us. Welcome back. So today we're going to be cooking this 2.5 pound Tomahawk Ribeye. We're using some awesome seasonings on it that are probably a little bit different than what you're used to. And it's also pretty fun because we got Father's Day coming up and I really want the moms to pay attention to this. If your husband loves steak, this is an amazing opportunity for you to run down to the store, pick up one of these delicious Tomahawk Ribeyes, season it up, follow these instructions on how to throw it on the grill, and serve him a meal fit for a king that he's absolutely going to devour. Let's get started. So you can get Tomahawk ribeyes in various sizes. All it really is a ribeye steak that has this extra fat cap on it and has the entire bone lift on it. So when you're used to buying a ribeye at the store, you're buying this centerpiece with the rib cap, and they normally remove the bone and turn that into a beef rib. But what we're doing today is we're leaving the bone intact. It makes a wonderful presentation when you're all done ready to serve it. It's easy to flip on the grill, and it's just super fun. We're gonna go ahead and coat this thing down with some good quality olive oil. Just a little bit as a binder. Do both sides because you're going to season both sides. And all the edges because you're going to eat those too. I'm going to hit it with a little bit of kosher salt. Now the reason we do kosher salt is because this is such a thick piece of meat that we really want to drive that salt down into it. And the rub we're using probably is not going to have enough salt to really drive it down in. So we do that, we'll flip it over. Do the same thing on this side. Now you could use sea salt, but we're kosher salt fan around here. I think it sticks around a little bit better. It holds up when you move it on and off the grill. If you put it on that fat there too, it'll cause that fat to render and crisp up a little bit more. Once that salt is on there, we're gonna go ahead and put this thing in the refrigerator for about 20 minutes. Let that salt bring all the moisture to the surface and dry out so that when the rub goes on, the rub actually adheres. So we'll be right back. All right, now that we have that pellicle formed on the top and the moisture is kind of being drawn out of this steak, we're gonna go ahead and season it with some chimichurri. Now, there's a bunch of different ways you can season it. Hardcore Carnivore Black is a favorite of ours around here. Even a salt, pepper, garlic is wonderful. The reason I like using a chimichurri style seasoning is it's got a lot of herbs that just really bring out and accentuate the fat that's in that ribeye. There's some acid that cuts into it. The herbs just have a nice little way of making everything pop, especially when you mix it with a compound butter, which we're going to show you in a minute. So we're going to use a chimichurri seasoning. Now this one's done. Al Fragoni created this chimichurri seasoning. It's everything that would be in a fresh chimichurri. So you got your parsley, you got your cilantro. It's all dried up in here. And if you use this to create an actual chimichurri, which we will in a few minutes, you're going to go ahead and rehydrate that seasoning, let it sit, mix it with olive oil, and we'll top this steak with it at the very end. But for our purposes, we're going to use this as a dry rub, which means those dry seasonings are going directly on the top of this steak. This smells amazing as I'm using it. We're going to hit it pretty heavy because some of this stuff will get knocked off pretty good. Now the reason we can put something like this dry on the steak is as the steak sweats on the grill, all that moisture is going to rehydrate all these herbs. And we're going to get amazing flavor that you wouldn't normally get when these herbs are heavily reduced by kind of a salt sugar rub. Now if you don't have this chimichurri sauce or this chimichurri seasoning anywhere near you, you can use a salt, pepper, garlic. You can use a Santa Maria style rub. There's a lot of good options, but I love herbs and beef. So especially something like rosemary or cilantro or parsley, those all go really, really well with beef. Don't worry about wasting time seasoning the bone side. There's no meat there to get flavor into, but everything else is going to be covered in that herb. Now that right there is a meal fit for a king. That's going to go on the grill. We're going to smoke it. We're doing a reverse sear today. So we're going to smoke it at 250 degrees until an internal temperature of about 110. We're going to pull it out and start building our sear over and over and over and over again, getting a wonderful crust on it till it hits an internal temperature of 131, which is a perfect medium rare, and that's when we're going to serve it. Because it's so thick and so heavy, this is probably going to be on the grill about an hour or so. So continue to temp it until you hit that 110. We're going to put it on the grill, and then I'll show you some of the other goodies we're making with it. So to make a compound butter that we're going to be putting on top of our steak when we're all done here, we're going to go ahead and take room temperature butter, go ahead and spread it out on a little bit of saran wrap. We're going to take this chimichurri seasoning, we're going to sprinkle it on top of the butter, using a knife to kind of cut it in and spin it all around until everything gets intermixed in that butter and it's a good mix. Then we're going to fold that saran wrap around it and spin it to tighten it so it forms a little bit of cylinder. Once that cylinder is formed, go ahead and place it in the refrigerator and let that butter harden. Now we can slice it into medallions and top our steak with it when we're all done. So I want to start building the chimichurri that we're going to use on top of the steak to kind of give it just an extra flavor pop. Now we got all that flavor on top of the steak as a rub. We're going to get all of it on top of the steak as a sauce now too. You can kind of mop up. It's going to be absolutely killer. And it's very easy. Again, we're using that same chimichurri seasoning. Now we're going to take this container and we're going to mix it. Now the way you mix this is you go 1 part chimichurri, 1 part red wine vinegar, 2 parts olive oil. So I like to do it about 1/4 cup. That's going to feed 4 to 6 people or more with a sauce. A little bit goes a long way. So we're going to take that 1/4 cup, dump it into our container. Now we're going to take our red wine vinegar. I really like red wine vinegar in a mix like this. So that goes into the bowl. Now we're going to take this, we're going to stir this around and let all these herbs that are inside rehydrate until you don't see any liquid. Once that's the case, we're going to come back in with 2 parts olive oil and get the whole thing put together. Right now that that's rehydrated, we're coming in with 2 parts olive oil. And there's 2. We're going to mix this up. Now I like to let it sit out. If you put it in the refrigerator, sometimes that olive oil will harden up a little bit. And then when it's time to serve, we're going to go ahead and spoon this over. Not only will it look beautiful, but it's going to taste phenomenal. Right, so we pulled this steak off. It hit about 118 degrees, which is right about where I wanted it. We go ahead and let it sit for about 10 or 15 minutes. Going to let that temperature kind of level off and start to fall, because what I don't want to do is have this thing hitting a climb and then come in with a really hard sear and just take it up over the top and overcook it. It's an expensive piece of meat. It's a big piece of meat. We want to do it upright. So you want to have that rest time for that cook process to kind of stop and slow down, start going the other direction before we start hitting it with a hard sear. So all that chimichurri we put on the outside completely rehydrated. You got a lot of red color coming from that hickory smoke that we put in the charcoal. It was an offset position, so we did not have this directly over the fire. It was offset. We kind of kept moving it around to make sure everything was even and nice. Now that it's good and smoked, hopefully the internal temperature is all even all the way through. We're going to go ahead and put it on the fire, see what happens with it. All right, and we're done. This tomahawk temped in at about 132, which is right about where we wanted it. It should be a nice medium rare. You probably saw in the previous shot, we hit it with some duck fat, which is one of our favorites around here. It has a wonderful browning effect. So we just went back and forth, seared, shook it up, got it right over the fire, raised that hasty bake all the way up to the grate level to get a really phenomenal sear on it, and kept flipping until we got that wonderful char we were looking at. When we temped it, it was still right where we wanted it to be. So that is the benefit of the reverse sear. Now we're going to go ahead and cut into this. I mentioned before, ladies, this is a wonderful option for you to cook for Father's Day for the upcoming holiday. Now you saw how easy it was. We seasoned it up, we threw it in direct on the grill. Now we seared it off and it's ready to be diced up. I want you to take a look at this right here. That right there is a man meal. That right there will please anybody. And for a Father's Day meal, you can't get better than that. So great encouragement for you to play around with that. The way to carve this thing up is real simple. You got to remember you got a big piece of fat right there. So I come in on the underside of the fat until my knife rides along the bone. And you just go ahead and cut this right away from the bone. Now this bone is a great little treat for someone to gnaw on. It's got tons of flavor, it's got tons of marrow on it, and what you have here is your steak left. Now remember, your spinalis is that best part, so we're going to go ahead and cut that off and slice it up first. Oh my goodness, it's juicy, it's savory, those herbs are just super aromatic. Man, I'm looking forward to this. And what we have there is edge to edge, great color. I'm gonna take this one piece of spinalis here. Now, remember what we did do is we got some chimichurri. So dust with a little bit of kosher salt over the top of it. You really want that flavor to pop. Then you take a little bit of this chimichurri and you spoon it on right there. And we are off to the races. That may be one of the best steaks we've ever cooked. I cannot believe what that chimichurri seasoning did on the outside. There's so much herb flavor on it. It tastes natural, it tastes earthy, it tastes just fatty and savory, everything you really want in a steak. It's outrageous. Pick up some of that seasoning. We have it at the Tulsa Grill Store. Pick it up from Al Fragoni if you need to on his website if you're not local. A great guy with some great videos. You can check him out as well. I'm gonna pound into the steak. My crew's gonna go crazy for it. Gonna get a little bit more of that chimichurri. That stuff is a game changer right there. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy your steak. Keep those fires going. Thanks for being here.